hello, and welcome to another episode of And All Shall Be Well. I'm your host, Megan Rohrer. Today's conversation is with Precious Green, whose bubbly, enthusiastic energy was so palpable and stories were so engaging, and our conversation went in such wonderful ways that I have chosen to give it to you in three different segments. So you're going to get three podcasts this week, one coming out every few days. So pop back in and you can hear part two and part three of this journey.
My name is Precious Green, and I should say professionally, I am the Director of Community and Partnerships as well as the House Moderator at Manny's. And basically, that means I get to talk with an incredible array of people about so many issues, primarily around civics and politics, but also around medicine, around technology, around community, even around loneliness, which is pretty impactful. So that's me.
Well, and you started that by saying professionally, this is who I am. So I'm wondering, are there more intersections that you embody that you want to like describe and share with folk about who you are and the pieces of you that you want to bring to the table in something that's recorded and shared publicly?
Absolutely. And again, I love this question because it's inviting me to think more fully and inviting me to define myself. So in terms of my intersections, I am a resident of Oakland over 10 years. I am a Black woman who jokingly refers to herself as African because my father is African American and my mother is Liberian American. So I have a bit of a cross cultural experience. I am also the granddaughter of a Black Baptist minister who grew up in Arkansas and went to Morehouse, which, if you know, you know, that's a whole nother realm in and of itself. And I was raised by him and my grandmother, who was also from Arkansas, who actually passed away this summer, but for her 102 years was my icon and definition of womanhood and kindness. I am, a college graduate, I'm one of those reformed law school grads who went, practice, said oopsie, and then is still using those skills, but not in the way I think my parents and my professors expected. Oh my gosh, so many things. I am I'm a Sagittarius, which is huge because we are known for being the life of the party, but also being a bit unfiltered and constantly looking for adventure. And so I think that fits me very well. And today, actually being my birthday, I think I share it with Brad Pitt, which is kind of weird, but I guess it's a weird flex. Yeah, it can be, but but I right now am a person who is in at the intersection of being in a season of joy and gratitude. And I probably could go on, but I'm sure our conversation will probably reveal more.
Well, so for those who aren't in the Bay Area, they might not be as familiar with Manny's, but Manny's is a space that is sort of known in the San Francisco area as kind of the place to be for political conversations, also for great food, also for crafted beers and kind of cool cultural experiences. I choose to think of it as the place where Precious has awesome conversations with people and takes very serious people and makes them laugh and tell stories about their childhood when they just want to talk nerdy stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is you. I will have to save this recording because you encapsulated incredibly well what my hope and intention is every day I walk into Manny's and get on that stage. And as I'm talking, I know, one question was asked, we're moving on. I forgot. I'm from the South. That is, thinking in terms of my day to day, I cannot believe I missed that. But I think I'm from Atlanta, which is its own experience of the South, but definitely that particular intersection is that, and my grandfather and my grandmother are huge with the work that I do, because the hospitality, the focus on seeing everyone, the interest in people, the intention to making our guests, whether they be on the stage or in the audience, feel at home. All of that comes straight from Nan and Jim. And so I cannot believe I forgot. And Atlanta, because people go there and they're just like, everyone says hello. And they actually wait for they ask me how I'm doing and they mean it, which, we're great about that. But as soon as someone starts saying, bless your heart, you need to walk away. My grandmother had like 12 different ways of saying it. And people, she was this nice little demure little church lady. And they were just like, oh, I feel like she just clutched my pearls. And I was like, yeah, she doesn't like you. It's okay. But yeah, so kind of going back to that question about intersections and how I embody them, I think everything that I mentioned, and certainly other elements of who Precious is, like, sitting here just thinking, I remember being a kid in Atlanta when RuPaul was Supermodel came out, and RuPaul was selected as the first ambassador for Viva Glam. And I was just awestruck seeing this, as we now call them, Glamazon, just out and living a full life and showing up with the B-52s and talking about going, spending time in Atlanta and all of this. And, just that kind of energy, and being a woman in a space, being a Black person in America who also has West African experience, all of those things come together, I hope. And I start the day believing they come together as hopefully a kind person, a deeply curious person, someone who takes herself seriously, but not so seriously as to be arrogant and unapproachable. Is I think no matter how many books I've read, how many podcasts or TV shows or whatever that I have viewed and listened to, at the end of the day, if I am meeting anyone, whether they be on the street or on the stage where I work, um, if I am engaging with someone and they don't feel present in that engagement, in that conversation, then I failed. And you can't create a space where people feel present and seen if you take yourself too seriously. I mean, we're human. Everybody's going to have something goofy. Everyone's going to have a story. And, life's too short. Why are you going to hide the cackle that you may have? And I'm sure when I laugh later, you'll be like, whoa, she wasn't kidding. Everyone has that. Why hide it? It makes us unique. It makes us amazing. It is fascinating. And yeah, I think I answered. That was the extended remix answer. So
Yeah, I liked it because I think that really helped me understand, because part of what I observe about you is you're in a very political conversation styled place all the time. Like, having enough conversations that it makes the papers pretty regularly. And in the world, at least in the folk that I talk to, there is this sense of like, politics makes me crazy. It makes me feel unwell. It's just so divisive. But
Mhm.
you sort of carry the sparkle of your shirt, kind of, I think, in your life, in that I think you're always seeking, like, where's the kindness in this conversation?
Mhm.
And even when you care very deeply and passionately about something, you're not in it to like get the other person thrown off a ledge of a cliff. You're in
Right.
it for like, how can we be the best in the world? And I guess, how do you do that, and how can we do it too?
I think for me, and it's definitely it's an ongoing process, but was it since I've been in this particular role and have really just been like, I love doing this. Like, yes, universe, God, more please. I realized I again, back to humans, they are fascinating. And I am so curious. And I find that leaning into my curiosity helps me be less judgmental. And I think that's a foundational point because we can different people have different points of view about when this current iteration of American culture kicked off. But for whatever reason, we're at a point now where it feels like nuance is a curse word. And the idea that we can truly contain multitudes and truly, have common ground despite some disagreements on other issues. That feels like a lost art in a lot of ways. And it's really sad because, again, I joke, but it's kind of serious. I'm a Sagittarius. We don't like boredom. And I also have ADHD. We really, that's like, no, no, ma'am. And the idea that there are people who actually believe that they should be surrounded by people who walk lockstep with them, and that's a beautiful world. That's so boring. I mean, I contain multitudes. I'm all over the place. And I can talk about a whole bunch of things. I am fascinated by a whole bunch of things. I'm curious about a whole bunch of things. But if the world were made of clones of me, we would get on each other's nerves. So staying curious is really where I start. The other, I think beyond that, I also, even though sometimes it is really challenging, I choose to believe that everyone who is choosing to step up and engage in discourse has believes, I'll say, they have the best interests of people in mind, the best interests of their family. Now, whether I agree with how they choose to express or protect those interests, that's a separate piece. But sitting down with someone who disagrees or whose point of view I don't understand, and choosing to believe that at their core they have we fundamentally agree that we want the best that is possible, and we know the best is possible, um, for our families, our loved ones, our friends. And that helps me see people as human. I think a lot of people, particularly the ones who seem to be taking up the most oxygen, when it does come to politics, unfortunately, or pop culture, are people who are so focused. Let me rephrase. They come across to me like they're so focused on their end game and not about the people that they purport to care about. And I think that really comes through on both sides of the aisle, if I'm being honest. There are plenty of people who they're yelling and they're jumping on social media and they're typing this vitriol and directing it at strangers. And, you know, my first thing is like, who raised you? Like, what are we doing? You know, would your mom be okay with this? For me, I'm like, would your grandma be okay with this? And they're just going full bore. And it, I just, it can't be because they care. They may think they care, but their actions suggest that they are just more focused on making their ego feel something. And that is a recipe for trauma and pain and constant upset. And life's too short. So, you know, let's have a conversation. Let's sit down. You know, let's find those things. They can be so small. I have been on at one of my favorite conversations that we had, and I don't like to call them events, I'm like, they're conversations. And I believe you were there when Kelly Robinson, the CEO of the Human Rights Campaign, sat down. One, the fact that, you know, she said yes to this, and this was essentially her first public interview. Hello, shoulder pat for me. But then when she walked in, she was just a regular person. And I remember, you know, being in the front in our cafe area and welcoming her and looking down, and we both had animal print shoes. And I was like, girl, we're fine. And, you know, certainly there were other aspects of her life and story that made the connection easier. She's from the Midwest. She also is an African American woman, but still, her life experience is so different from mine. But by virtue of breaking the ice over shoes and having that cute hey girl hey moment, we had a wonderful time. And she paid the highest compliment to me, which was I forgot that the audience was there. I felt like I was just sitting down with one of my girls just catching up. And that is, you know, uh, that's it. That's the thing. And we need more people walking away from each other feeling that way. And I don't know if it can be what's the word, made to scale or whatever they mean when you scale up. But I think we have to try. And so, you know, that's my little corner. I'm like, I'm trying. And so far it seems to be doing pretty well for me and our community.
I think so. I think you're kicking butt. Um, what do you do on days when it's hard? Like everybody has a day where they just would like rather not get out of bed, or the world feels like it's overwhelming, or you just are like, what? How is what I'm doing gonna fix any of this nonsense?
Hmm.
What do you do on days like that? How do you? What's your wellness for yourself in those moments?
Ooh. Um, Wellness is challenging, you know, just being real. So full, I guess, full page about myself. I have been diagnosed with depression. I've got the trifecta: depression, anxiety, and ADHD, and she's fabulous. And one of the things I'll always be grateful about moving to the Bay was moving in from a place where when I felt like something isn't right, I'm not, you know, to borrow the phrase, I'm not my sparkle. It's very dull. Um, the response to that from well-meaning people who I know love me wasn't okay. Well, let's look at therapy. Let's see what we can do. It was literally the acronym PUSH, which is pray until something happens, which is cute. It goes on t-shirts. Yay. Wear it on a band. But sometimes we need to pray and push and then still get more help. And so when I moved to the Bay, I found myself in communities where mental health and wellness were part of everyday conversation. And, I've been in some circles where if you don't have a therapist, people are like, what's going on? What do we need to do? And so that has helped me so much to really, I think, step in, s- do take more steps into the fullness of who I am. There's still challenging days. But in terms of kind of big picture, that has been huge. Being in a space where all of me, the sort of presentation corporate side, as my sister sometimes says, and that more vulnerable, more tender side are both seen. When it comes to like nowadays, intention plays a large part in wellness. And, um, one of the things thinking about today, it's my birthday, and um, I am in my 40s and will have a milestone birthday, not this year, coming up. And so as you get closer to that, if you're lucky, you have those moments where you really step into self-reflection. And one of the things for me is really getting clear about what I am intentional about. And so that is and will be a huge part of what wellness means uh, for me. Um, Nowadays, it I don't have a consistent plan, unfortunately. I meditate in the mornings. I use this app called Insight Timer. There's one particular teacher, I think it's pronounced Muji, who is phenomenal. And I just sit with that and it's just like, oh, yes. He's on YouTube now, but I don't think I want to see him because I'm going to be tempted to look as opposed to go within. So I'm like, sir, get off of YouTube. Please get off of YouTube. But that has been incredibly helpful. But consistency is a challenge because some days you wake up and if I don't remember to leave my phone outside in my room, the phone's right there. And it's like, oh, she's up, she's ready. And then all the buzzing and things happen. So, got to be more intentional with that because that will send your day in all sorts of directions in a heartbeat. And it's so hard to pull back from that. Um, Beyond that, though, uh, my Myers-Briggs says I'm an extreme extrovert. And so, which I agree with. And so for me, I get a lot of fulfilling energy from being out with and around positive, friendly, jovial, lively, creative people. Even if we don't agree, even if they say something, I'm like, "Whoa, okay." And sometimes you have those moments where you're just like, oh. But being around people, and particularly like being around my friends who are just so just fully themselves, it's freeing. And it's just like, there's a bunch of hot Cheetos mess going on. But in this moment, we are a circle of joy. We are a circle of laughter. We are a circle of weird. We are a circle of wisdom, of storytelling, of ancestral wisdom. Like one of my best friends is a witch, and that's so wild. I'm like, I know a witch. Who knew? Like I was trying to put together an event on witches, and I was like, "Hey, you do this priestess work. Do you know any witches?" And she was like, "Hello." Like, okay, yeah. But Having a varied circle of friends and associates that you actually like and you spend time with really is helpful. Living here in the Bay, here in Oakland, you know, it can be very challenging because the work that I do requires or has an expectation that I'm following the news. However, my peace of mind has an expectation that I'm taking care of myself. And my body has an expectation that I'm doing all I can to be safe. And sometimes the news, particularly about the world generally, the Bay specifically, and Oakland in particular, is very like, this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. And I that that's hella stressful. It's not cute. It's a rabbit hole, and I'm the princess of rabbit holes. I was on Nextdoor for a moment, and it was pretty good. I was finding neighbors. Like one neighbor said, "Hey, I've got a lot of extra rosemary. Would you like some?" And I was like, "Sure." Another one during the 2020 campaign made these posters, and they're like, "Hey, would you like a poster? We got to make sure Biden wins." I was like, "Sure." However, those beautiful moments be soon were subsumed and surrounded by just so much gunk. And my tendency is to not just maybe read the article or read the initial post, but to read the comments. And then I feel myself being like, and it takes me a second sometimes to catch myself. And so I was like, hopefully I can come across some rosemary just in the wild because I can't do this anymore. I mean, Citizen, another thing. And it's just, you have to make a choice. And the choice I make, I still know. I mean, I'm not crazy and I'm not Pollyannish about it. But I choose joy. I choose, if it gets too much, I literally will tell myself, Precious, we need to go touch some grass. And if you go to Lake Merritt, there is a beautiful area over near Snow Park where I don't think they cut the grass as much as they do other areas. So it's this really beautiful, rich, verdant like grass. And I will literally go, I have a little, picnic kit in my car. I'll throw my blanket out. I'll sit there. Maybe I'll have a book, maybe not. And I will literally clump grass. I've had friends who come by and they've just been like, whoa. Because some days are really hard, but there's, give it to the Gen Zers. There's something about just going out and touching that grass and knowing that this is still here. This water is still here. The universe, the creator, God, spirit, Bob, whatever you call it, is still with us. Like, we have not been forsaken for the stupid choices, decisions, and things we say, because we have this beauty that we had nothing to do with. And I think there's the Greater Good Center, I think it's called, out at UC Berkeley. Dackler something is the director. They have a podcast, all the things. Great, really brilliant people. But he released a book last year called Awe. And he talks about how awe is a fundamental piece of essentially a good, balanced life. And one of the practices is literally go outside and look up at the sky. And I live in a city. So for me to actually get to the point where I see the stars, I have to drive a ways. So I haven't really done that. But touching grass and just watching the ducks and watching the waves come and go has the same effect because it's perspective. And in that moment, all the other noise just goes away. and you just have some really great grass, and you're like, oh my gosh, the grass is so green.
See,
I
I'm
hope
with you with that. I think feet in grass is the best thing ever. But where you lost me is if it turns out God's name is Bob, I will be disappointed. I think God should have a much more interesting and celebratory name than that.
I mean, okay, so again, I was, telling you about Reverend Derica, who she's phenomenal. She's the reason I joined the church, and then she left. She came back, and we're like, yeah, she's back. But one of the things that she has said is, there are many names for God. There are many names for the Creator, and a lot of people have been hurt by organized religion, and they recoil when you use some of the more traditional names. And so, she said, if you call the universe Bob or Susie, so long as you call it, and it's just like, yes, ma'am, yes, and if it were, if it turns out that the name actually is Bob, like, in the ever after, where it's like, hey, how's it going? What's that? Where are my grandparents? I want to say hi.
Yeah.
And, he says, hey, or it says, because we don't know. I presume that a creator who can create all of this doesn't have time for gender. But if it says, hey, by the way, you've been calling me God and spirit, but I go by Bob for short. Then I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite drag queens. This is amazing. It all makes sense now. And then we'll just party and have a good time.
All right, I'm
Yeah.
back on board. I'm back on
Yeah.
board. I love that. I also especially appreciate you because I think now we've got enough for 2 or 3 podcasts. We'll say
I'm so sorry. Oh
no.
no.
It was brilliant. I don't know why you would apologize for sharing your wisdom for free with me.
Oh, thank you so
But
much.
if there is a way that people want to contact you or be in touch or get Sparkle Consultancy support, or hang out at Manny's, whatever contact information is your something that you'd be comfortable sharing in the world. Is there anything you'd like
Yeah,
to share with
sure.
people?
If I'm being very, very honest, I'm kind of like the Gen Zers that I work with, where you can send me email. My personal inbox is, ooh. However, people can find me on Instagram. I think my handle is at PGITTY. It's my older brother's nickname for me. Or just look me up. My last name is Green, like the color. I was not named after a crayon like this kid in 3rd grade thought I was, and then he got in trouble because he dumped all the crayons trying to find the. I love that story. I'm like, Casey. But yeah, I'm happy to connect with people there. That honestly is the easiest.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to And All Shall Be Well and this conversation with Precious. If you enjoyed it, there are 2 more conversations that you can listen to that will come out in the next couple of days. Or if you're listening to this after they've all been released, you can just move right on to the next conversation. All 3 of them together show you that there are lots of ways one person can hold multiple types of feelings at the exact same time. Someone can be the life of the party and sad in the same body. Someone can be fully present for their neighbors and stuck in their own personal grief at the same time. So be kind to yourself. Honor the ways that you are a multi-layered person. And if you have a little extra in you, care for your neighbor a little bit today. If you appreciated this podcast, I hope that you'll like and subscribe and do all those things that people do for podcasts. And if you are able, I hope that you will check out our Patreon and give a little if you can. If you can't, it's okay, because we know that life is hard. And I'm going to continue sharing love on social media every day and supporting you the best that I can. Try if you are able. And if you're not, all shall be well anyway. I really, really appreciate your listening. And I'm especially grateful for all the folk who have reached out with kind comments and have encouraged me to continue on with these important conversations. I'll chat with you again next time.